All right, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining the 9th edition or the October edition of Success Spotlight. My name, of course, is Nolan Dude. I'm the Client Experience Manager for IdealTraits, and super excited for October rendition or edition. We have Haley Reyes, Farmers Insurance Agency owner. Haley's been in the insurance industry for the past 8+ years, has served as an agency owner for the past 6, and currently has an office of 7 staff, and where she's born and raised, I believe, in the state of Texas, but now resides in Fort Worth, Texas. So Haley also opened her agency back when she was just 23 years old. So I'm sure Haley will give us a little bit more information on whether it was scratch or whether she bought a book. But again, at the young age of 23, took the leap to become an entrepreneur. And here we are today, of course, with running a very successful farmers agency. So Haley, of course, has her husband and her one child for now, and is giving us time out of her schedule, just weeks out, I think end of October, early November, of welcoming her second child to the world. So Haley, I really appreciate you giving me and us this time to talk about over the last several years how you've been successful with staffing and recruiting in the insurance space. So thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am super happy to be here. I've been a big fan of IdealTraits for a really long time. So it's exciting to get to help other agents succeed in the way that it has helped me as well. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. And Haley's been an IdealTraits user since August of 2020. That is the month and the year that we partnered with Farmers Insurance. So she has been a user ever since then. So Haley, of course, we appreciate your support over the years too as well. So generally what we do just right from the start is a little bit about, yourself and your story, getting started in insurance. I know I mentioned 8 years in the industry, 6, of course, as an agency owner now, starting at 23, all great stuff. Talk to us a little bit about how that all started and how that all began, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Texas Tech University and I was majoring in finance with a concentration in real estate. Went to the career fair and turned down the wrong aisle, insurance row, that's what they called it. And I got stopped by the farmer's booth and ultimately, long story short, decided to jump into an internship with them, had a few other offers with like Northwestern Mutual, Edward Jones, and just decided, I don't know why this sounds more intriguing, but we'll see what Farmers is about. So I jumped into an internship with them, interned with them over my senior summer, and then went back and wrapped up college and kind of worked part-time remote for an agent and went into her agency full-time for a little over a year and then decided this is what I want to do. It's not glamorous. It's not a fun subject that people love to talk about, but it's something that everybody needs, whether the market's good or bad, economy's good or bad. So I said, all right, let's take the plunge. And at that time, Farmers was not offering scratch agencies. So they offered me a super small book of business that was almost like a scratch agency type deal. So I purchased that and haven't looked back since. It's just been kind of blinders on, head down, and getting things accomplished.
Man, yeah, and here you are, right? So when you made that transition and, of course, had taken over that book of business, I'm sure that there was a lot of different conversations and a lot of learning experiences that you had there at the beginning, right? Of course, I'm sure that the experience that you had a couple of years before helped. But when you were going through that first transition, okay, now you're the agency owner, you've got clients, you've got to get new clients, you've got to bring on staff to grow things. I mean, how did you put that blueprint together, and how did it all work from there?
I think truly having the experience of being a producer at an agency helped me to kind of say, okay, here are the do's and here are the don'ts. I really liked this. I'm going to model this within my agency. And I really did not like how we did this. I'm going to make sure that I don't do this for my team in the future. And so I just picked and pulled apart as best I could. I also took my degree knowledge and paired that with just how to run and operate a business, and making some of those bigger financial investment moves. I feel like I would lend my degree and my personality to that piece, but then pairing it with the experiences that I had as a producer that allowed me to ultimately kind of say, okay, this is our game plan. And then that is including a bunch of trial and error too. So it is, the same team is not with me today. I can tell you that much. When I was 23 and managing, my first staff, there were some bad hires. I was 3 months in, did my first fire. There's a couple, there were definitely a couple or more than a couple, a few learning experiences that I've had to grow in as well. But ultimately, it's just shaped us into a better agency today.
Well, they say experience is the best teacher, right? So
Yes.
all of those things, putting it together. All right, awesome. And I think it's a unique position, right? Because I think a lot of folks today, like in your position, you are a very young, new business owner, right? And managing most likely, in some cases, people that are older than you, right? And in another instance would be, older agency owners maybe managing people that are younger than them, right? Something that there could be, I could say that there's a decent amount of disconnect on it, right? From generation to generation. So how did you sort of bridge that gap? I know age usually isn't considered as, a qualification for a position, or at least it shouldn't be, but I'm sure that communication styles and the way that process worked was something that you had to learn on too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, typically speaking, when I hire, I'm hiring the best candidate for the position. And when I take into that consideration, that also includes how they're going to fit into the agency. So I am very young. It's a female-led office or female-owned agency. And so I refuse to have like a catty atmosphere. I'm not going to have shark people with sharking leads. I'm not going to have the catty nag back and forth. That's just not my personality. I don't enjoy that. And so I make sure with each individual candidate that I feel that that's not going to be an issue. And so I even, bringing that in maybe a question that you ask later, but I will actually interview or have my staff interview people to see how well they like that candidate. Because at the end of the day, technically speaking, we spend more hours per day with each other than we do waking hours with our families. And so we've got to like the people that we work around. And so, there are times where it's like, hey, we may be introducing a little bit personality difference into the mix, but at the end of the day, sometimes those can be the best ones, and having the variety that makes up, and it makes the office more fun overall. So we just take each candidate very case by case scenario.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. And I see that Shelly Wade has already popped into the question and answer section, cheering you on, Haley. Shelly, hello. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And if anybody has questions, go to the Q&A tab. We're happy to answer live questions too as well throughout the session. But let's fast forward to where you're at now, Haley. Of course, having 7 staff members. One of the questions that I love to ask that I sort of haven't really been good about asking over the last couple is just the structure of your office, because you have some offices that have sales and they have service people, and then some where it's like, hey, everybody's doing a little bit of everything, right? So now that you've obviously built up that infrastructure over the last 6 years, how is the office built up? Do you have several different departments, or does everybody do a little bit of everything? How does it work for your office?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We really do try to be team players and as best we can. So I do keep departments separate.
Okay.
Typically speaking, I've learned service people really like to service. They like to have the good interactions. They like to be able to come in, save the day for the client, and get the satisfaction from the customer service side of things. And they don't appreciate the pressure and the emotional roller coaster that sales ride. And then on the flip side of that, a salesperson, that is my personality myself, is very much sales driven. They like the high. They like the high of closing the sale, getting the person, getting the routing and account number. But then on the flip side, they don't like, hey, can you swap this vehicle for me? Why'd my bill go up? Why this, that, and the other happened? They don't like answering those small questions. So I keep them as separate as possible. However, if customer service is on the phone and they're at the oil changing place and need an ID card to get their state inspection, great. Everybody should be able to send that over. It shouldn't be something that, it's just the customer service side. So in the little cases, we try and everybody help out as a team. However, for the most part, we do keep our departments separate. So I have customer service, sales, and marketing.
Gotcha.
And so marketing is for social media. That is, I have an intern in college, and she runs all social media platforms and lead generation in regards to anything and everything social media and current clients, and kind of helping with email campaigns and things like that. Sales solely focused on outbound calls, the call-ins, walk-ins, referrals, and selling to each individual every single day. And then customer service. I still step into customer service, agency owner. Everybody wants to talk to you at the end of the day. So I help out the customer service rep, and her and I tag team customer service. And then I also manage sales and help them. So I just kind of bounce in and out of CSR and sales role as best I can.
Absolutely. Yeah, cool. And I want to go down a path of something that you mentioned, because I think internships have become very popular as people look to, I suppose, get some assistance from that. But then it's become really something that a lot of agencies are looking to focus on as it's become massive is social media, right? So you having an intern in the social media space, I would love to talk a little bit more about how you had that connection and how you built that relationship and were able to find someone to help you out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you had mentioned earlier, I office in DFW, specifically Fort Worth. So that is an advantage point. We have multiple colleges around us, whether it be junior colleges or full-fledged universities. And so I'm able to kind of harvest from TCU, UNT, TCC, SMU, UTA, etc. So I've got a ton of universities around me that we are able to use. But ultimately, the reason why I like to hire an intern is because they're cheap. They're way cheaper than hiring a full-time marketer. And they are just on top of everything. That's what they're learning in school. They're learning the here, the now, the best. And it's not somebody who maybe be really good at SEO and research working in the background that's a little bit older and established in their career. These are the people that are jumping on TikTok. They're the ones that know the ins and outs of Instagram stories and what and when to post and where. And so I want to be the agency as part of my brand that's really social media forward due to our age. And so I'm trying to push that. And I found the internships help them. I'm able to partner with the university on the backside, so we count as a credit for them, because a lot of them are required to have a credit with an internship in order to pass or to graduate. So we're able to offer that, but on the flip side, we gain all of the good young here now social media knowledge out of it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And I think the quote they say, I don't know if it's necessarily a quote, but I think they say, if you don't have a sales team or a marketing plan, you don't really have a business, right? So it sounds like you've got the plan in place, and that's obviously awesome to hear. So when it comes to, I guess, looking to hire, we've had a good variety of guests on Success Spotlight of different spots, right? Agencies that are looking to grow, agencies that are looking to, grow as, I guess the book of business grows, right? As production comes in the door. And then, I say that would probably be the two ends of that road. So when you're looking to hire, or when you're planning to bring someone on, I know we talked earlier, I think Monday, about how you have two new people starting here relatively soon. What's your determining factors around hiring? Is it a situation where you're always looking to find great people to join the office? Are you hiring as the agency grows? What's the situation for you all, Haley?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of definitely now adopting, and when other agents ask, I now find myself to be the one that's like, always be hiring, so I'm never, if a good candidate's there, I'm never going to turn down an interview. I'm never going to say I'm fully staffed, especially when it comes to the sales department. We're a very sales driven agency, high in growth. So my ultimate goal is to staff with A-rated players. And so, it just is what it is. Ideally, we would love to hire everybody and everybody be perfect. Somebody may think that they're going to be great at sales, and ultimately at the end of the day, they just don't like the high and low. And that's absolutely no fault to them. As a person, it takes a very different personality to ride that high and low of the insurance market, the sales market, et cetera. So I think that not everybody sticks at the end of the day. And so just making sure that you're keeping it you're keeping your pipeline full of people, and taking a chance. Because at the end of the day, if you take the chance on the right person, they're never going to fail you in regards to being a bad business investment. So
Sure.
we just kind of just keep it always rolling, keep ads constantly open.
Yep. We like to say you can't afford not to be hiring, because then you miss out on those folks.
Correct. And I've done it both ways. I've done, especially with the last 2 years in the market, the constriction. And I found that with limiting myself on hiring people, I ended up hurting myself more than it actually benefited me. So at this point, we've just totally turned the ship around and are pushing very hard and hiring people to make sure that we get our numbers up.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I feel as just based on what you said, it would be fair to say then that through IdealTraits, you most likely never have, you're never in a situation where you don't have a job ad posted, whether it's for sales or service. Is that
Correct?
Am I hearing you right? Got it. Okay. Outstanding. I missed this question. It came in from Andrea. So we're going to take a little bit of a step back to the marketing stuff with the intern. So Andrea's asking, did you reach out to the colleges directly, or how did you develop the relationship or start the partnership with the schools to count as credit for the students? So I don't know if you're paying them or if they're getting credit, or maybe it's both, but how did you start that relationship? And I know you said you have a couple of different colleges in your area to choose from. So how did you go about that process?
I assume this is not state specific. I think it's a general website. It's called Handshake. And it's where you basically apply as a business. You then apply to the colleges that you want to be considered for, and then they will approve you. And so if they approve you, then it counts. So their board, specifically their business board or whoever, you're seeking a hire from, when that's approved, the internship is approved. And so, yes, they are paid from me, but they're also getting that internship qualification. But the website's called Handshake.
Yeah, that's a great, a plug for Handshake too. I think they are the largest, I don't necessarily think it's a job board, but I think they're the largest database of recent college graduates or college students. I think a lot of colleges work with them and connect them with companies. And although IdealTraits doesn't have an immediate connection with them, for Andrea or for anyone else that wants to do something similar to what Haley has put together, is take your career page or take your job ad link, copy it, and put it on your Handshake, and then they can apply directly from your link. So there is a way for you to be able to leverage that too as well and build that connection. But I think that's great. So you've been using Handshake probably for a while now, Haley, is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Perfect. All right, outstanding. So cool. Any more questions on that, Andrew, or anyone else? Feel free to hop in there. But we talked about when you're looking to hire, always looking to bring on staff. So applications are constantly coming in. Are you the one that's handling the candidate communication? Does someone at your office assist you with that process? How does it work for your agency in terms of making sure that you're not leaving candidates hanging for, a week or 2 weeks at a time?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it is me. We're in a little bit of a restructure mode on the agency. So I'm hoping here within the next 12 months, I'll be able to promote an office manager, ideally also promote somebody to sales manager role, where I'm just more so GM, and that limits me out of some things. So CSR, though, does have a very heavy weigh into being the candidates that they see from their side. Sales would have a very big weigh into sales side. But we do have a phenomenal district that I'm a part of. I'm with Jeff Ivey's district with farmers. And so they also help. So they even weed through my candidates and say, hey, I've called this person, talked to them on the phone. They're doing really great. I think they'd be a good fit for your agency. Or like, hey, no, I don't think this is a really good fit. They're, in Rockwall. They applied for your position, but they're in the Rockwall. And so that commute's not going to work out well, et cetera, et cetera. So, we partner with them and are able to kind of look through all my candidates as best we can. But right now, I'm still very much in charge of who I hire.
For sure. Yep. And when you're reaching out to the candidates, I know you mentioned that the district is helping you out a little bit, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about. But in terms of that initial reach out, whether it's you or the district, is there texting happening? Is it email? Is it phone call? Is there one specific method that you see works best? What do you recommend there?
I usually try an email first. If there's somebody that I really, really, really want to be the first person on, like everything, they've checked all the boxes, then I will call them and or at least shoot them a text first. I don't ever want to, call them and throw them off guard because they think, I'm XYZ for something else, and it kind of make an awkward work environment if they're still at another location. So I usually will try and shoot a text message to them first and do an outbound call. But if it's maybe somebody that has applied and I'm kind of on the fence about, I want to see how fast they check their email. I want to see how interested they are. Are they on top of a response? How desperate are you for a job?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, of course, seeing their response, of course, helps you gauge their interest. Are you usually reaching out to candidates within 24 hours of them applying, especially if you like them? Or what would you say the turnaround is there?
I would say consistently, I try to check once a week all the candidates in IdealTraits. But when I get an email that says that they've completed their results, it doesn't matter if it's 9:30 at night. I'm like, click. And I want to see what they tested. And so like I had one pop in. He did his test super late last night. I had him pop in. He tested salesperson. So I'm going to give him a call here shortly, just because I like that personality type. And from what I see on his resume, he's got some experience. So.
Yeah. Personally, I'm a little biased, but I think persistent is the best IdealTraits personality, but we'll leave it.
Oh, I do like a good sales leader.
Yeah.
But no, maybe I am one, but it's fine.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, awesome. So the job ad goes out, people are applying, you're communicating with them, they're completing their assessment, you're reviewing it, it seems almost instantly, especially if you have the time. So then what personalities do you look for? I know we talked about sales leader, but what personalities, do you generally look for on that sales and service side? I'm sure it differs, of course, right, as it should. But what's your preference there? Let's say 1 to 2 personalities each side that you generally are like, okay, here we go. This is what I'm looking for.
Yep, absolutely. So salesperson, sales leader, and closer, I really like on the sales side. One that I never thought I would like, but seems to do a heck of a lot better than I ever thought, is nurturer. Okay. They can build rapport. Yeah. Better than any salesperson. Salesperson gets ticked off after a certain amount of time, whereas nurturers can nurture a relationship like no other. And so I've had 2 really successful producers that are nurturer and personality. And then, go ahead.
No, sorry, continue.
And then for service side, I would say I like a nurturer and somebody who's consistent. They like the same routine tasks day in, day out. They don't like the high and low. And then, of course, nurturer works extremely well on the customer service side just because they can nurture those relationships with our clients. Yeah,
nurturers are fantastic, to your point, at building that relationship. If you're, I guess, we wouldn't say like a nurturer for like a heavy outbound role. I'd imagine that the position that you have them in is most likely where you're feeding them leads or giving them contacts of people to reach out to, or their warm leads being sent to them. If it's a cold calling role and that's what it is, nurturer you might want to stay away from. But if it's one where you're feeding them leads and feeding them opportunity, I suppose, then yes, there is few better to be able to nurture that relationship. I mean, that's the name of the position.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. So outstanding. Okay. Yeah, I won't take it personally that you didn't mention persistent as a part of it.
Hey, in a telemarketing role, persistence pretty darn good.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. And then first interview, I know you mentioned that your team is going to be involved in the interview, the district helping out a little bit, but what's that first, it sounds like you're calling and having that first interaction with them. And then really one of my favorite things about the success spotlights we've done is that there's usually something unique that an agency does. We've had Drew Hodgson, he takes people to dinner. Jason Kilco, he has them do a role play with a fake scenario from a bike company that he presented them with, right? So I know you mentioned that your team is a part of the interviewing process, but is there anything else unique that you guys do at your agency that, maybe would be considered unique? Anything that comes to mind?
So I always start off with a phone screen. I want to hear the background. So did you forget? Are you driving? What does your voice sound like on the phone? Because that's huge, because we're basically a service industry that's pretty much remote. We don't have as many walk-ins compared to how many calls that we have come in or out daily. So I want to hear their phone voice, and I want to hear their grammar, how the inflection of their voice works, et cetera, et cetera. So if I like their phone voice enough, then we move into an in-person interview. In-person interviews, I've learned people could be really good at interviewing and be horrible for the position, and somebody can be super nervous with interviewing in person and actually may be your top star.
Sure.
So with interview, I'm just looking for authenticity. I'm looking for eye contact and how well they carry themselves, whether it be physically or just verbally come across. So once we do that, if I really like the candidate, then we'll move to basically a employee interview. So I'm not a part of it, and it's like super casual. They're able to ask any questions that they want to ask, and the candidate's also able to ask them any questions that they want to ask, because at the end of the day, they're probably going to have questions about how I am as boss, and they're not going to want me sitting in there listening in, and
Yep.
So that way it allows them to build a team, and they say, yes, we really like him or her. She's going to be a great fit to the team. Where it's like, I don't know, we may have some problems here. And if that's the case, and they're already picking up on something that I'm not, then I trust my current team to say, hey, this is maybe not the best for us. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I would say that's our little bit more unique. I don't take anybody to dinner. I got too much on my hand. Bedtime's at like 7:30. So listen, we got bedtime, bath time, you name it, coming in early. So there's no real dinner interviews at this time in my life.
Yeah. And I would say that you not being there is the unique part of it, right? Mm-hmm. Because that just shows the trust that you have in your current team to give you transparent, honest feedback about candidates. Because I mean, let's face it, right? Like, if you have it, and I don't think your team would ever do this, or any team really, but let's say you have a team of 3 and they're like, hey, more people coming in means less leads for us. Like, let's figure this out, right? So you having that trust in your team, and them, of course, really having that trust in you is what it shows, that mutual trust to be able to give you honest feedback on candidates, and to see the mission of the agency to grow and to add more good people to what you guys are looking to accomplish. I think speaks to the office culture that you all have and what you've cultivated, Haley. So I think that's awesome. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Missed a question here from Lily. So it's back to, I guess, the customer service side of it. But Lily was asking, when a candidate applies to a CSR role, but they come back with a sales personality from the IdealTraits assessment, do you go about that conversation like, hey, I know you applied to service, but we think you might be a good fit for sales? Or do you generally just move on from that candidate and kind of consider other options? How does it work?
I think it would depend on their background.
Sure.
Have they been in insurance, or have they not? Are they new to insurance? I would have no problem with somebody thinking that they may want customer service, and maybe it's a time in their life where they're, maybe some bigger life changes have occurred and they really need a higher salary and just don't know what sales is about or how much they can actually achieve within sales. So I wouldn't rule them out altogether. It would be a very open conversation of, hey, why, yes, you may be a good candidate for customer service, and we may be able to start you off there. I think you might actually prefer sales more. And so if they're open to that idea of looking into that sales role eventually and seeing what they look like, I'm not opposed to then moving them over.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that. Yeah. All right. And then when it comes to, I guess, sort of what you look for, I know we've kind of bounced around it a little bit. Do you generally prefer people who are already licensed and have experience, or are you open to always helping someone obtain that license if they have the right personality and the right background?
I would say I do both 50-50, to be completely honest. The good part about sales experience, especially insurance sales experience, is that they already know the game. So you don't have to teach that. It's not that you're having to teach property and casualty and here's everything about life insurance. You're more so just teaching policy specifics to your company. So I would say that part's easier, but typically speaking, those people also can sometimes come with bad habits. So that's another flip side to watch for. You sometimes just have to make sure and really vet them out that there's not a bad habit coming across, or I've been doing this for a while, I can do it better than you type deal. So you gotta pay attention to that. However, the flip side to not being in sales or insurance sales prior is the unknown. They're not really 100% sure. They think it's a great idea. They've been told that they can make a lot of money. They hear it all the time that they can make a ton of money in insurance, and then they don't like the daily grind of what it actually takes. So I've hired both ways. I've had both stick. I've had both not stick. So it's kind of just, once again, dependent upon the candidate. I don't necessarily know if I have a preference. It's just the right person.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more popular, right? Because, again, I think more people are experiencing that 50-50 that you mentioned, right? Where it's like, I've had licensed people not work out. I've had unlicensed people not work out, right?
Yep.
Like that isn't a determining factor of someone's success. What is the right personality, the right background, these types of things, right? So I think that's great. Do you have any employees working remotely now? Are you considering remote as an option for your agency, or do you look for, I guess, are all of your employees working in your office? And are you looking for remote people at all, or how does it work?
So I don't have any remote currently. Not to say that I wouldn't consider that option in the future. Maybe it's just the amount of social media that I see. Maybe I'm on the wrong algorithm. But a lot of people I see want to be like a stay-at-home mom, but with the paycheck.
Sure.
So I have a lot of hesitation on the work from home. I know my personality is I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to drive and go anywhere. So I'm like on my computer by 6:30 in the morning, and I look up and it's dark outside, and I'm like, oh crap, I've been here 13 hours in the same chair. So it just depends on the person. I think there are people who thrive in a work from home. And then I also have had plenty of people say, I've been in a work from home and I don't enjoy it. I need to come out and socialize. And so it definitely would depend on the candidate. There would be a compensation change for a work from home style versus in office. But yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I'm also not opposed to hybrid as well. And we do, if we have a bad weather day, or, hey, blah, 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 sick, my kid's sick, can I work from home today? I absolutely allow that to have flexibility in the work market and put that advantage above. But no, technically speaking, all of my people are in office right now.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Right. And I think that same hesitation that you have towards remote, a lot of agency owners have. So you're certainly not alone in that. And to your point, you're correct, at least in my opinion as well. Not everybody is capable of working from home. And one of those people you're looking at, not capable of it, not as productive. I am the only person that takes up this IdealTraits office on a day-to-day basis every day, because I know that with my skill set or my personality, I am better served to be here for sure than with all those distractions. So, all right, cool. In terms of, once you bring someone on, what does the training onboarding look like? Are you very hands-on in the training? Do you have any third-party training, organizations, or I guess I'm drawing a blank on the correct word I'm looking for, but do you go third-party for any particular training that you help with both at the beginning and with your staff currently as it on goes, or is it all in-house training that you and your team facilitate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of in-house training. It is very hands-on that they get me for multiple hours throughout the day for the first 2 weeks. And then you better be flying your wings after the first 2 weeks. I pair that with elite agency training. Okay. And they are a savior as far as outbound call scripts and helping people learn the art of talking to somebody and soliciting the sell. And so they basically spend half the day with me learning, here's your specific product knowledge, and the other half of the day is you need to be watching elite agency trainings videos, and you need to be learning how to sell. And then they'll come back to me, and then we'll role play those sales rebuttals and objections and things like that. So I rely heavily on elite agency, and I'll also do my training in office for how our office specifically runs and what coverages we require, et cetera, et cetera.
A blend of the two, right? Mm-hmm. blend. So yeah, elite agency training. Shout out Brian Scott, a former
Yes.
like too as well. I believe
Game changer.
number 6, I think it was. So check the link in the question and answer section. You'll be able to go back and review Brian's success spotlight too as well. But awesome. Yeah. So elite agency training, that's good. And then when it comes to once they've, go through that onboarding, they go through the training with you, they're doing the continual training with elite agency training. At that point, I guess, what are your tips to being able to keep good people at your agency? I think, hiring good people is one thing, but keeping them is another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I think it's commonly said now that the philosophy that someone's going to work for you for life is gone, right? I think the average time someone is at a business or in a respective position, just industry wide, right, in all different industries, is like I think 2 to 3 years generally. They say maybe even 1 to 3. So, what are your tips for keeping good people? I know you talked about a little bit of work from home benefit, but anything else you want to share in terms of retaining those good people?
Yeah, I think it's a give and take kind of tit for tat scenario. I know that I drive a hard line. My team knows that I have an internal drive that is above and beyond a lot of people, and I hold them to that. And there are plenty of people who don't like that, and that's okay. And they go find an agency that works better for them. But I think the ones that are here also know that if they're putting out and trying on the bad days, I'm here to catch them when they fall too. So, it could be like my customer service rep. She's a mother. She's a single mother right now. And so she's got a lot on her shoulders. And so the more flexibility that I can give her, that she came from customer service at a doctor's office. And as much as a doctor probably would be willing because they loved her as a customer service rep, they can't have somebody not be there to check in the patients and get them back into their rooms. And so with that, I am able to allow a lot more flexibility of, oh, hey, you got to pick your kids up early this day. Oh, one got sick and is thrown up at school. You got to go get them. Or just the general, you get a kid out of the car and then they forget their homework and you've got to drive back home and you've got to go get the homework and bring it up to the school. So, it could just be all those little general things I try to give grace on. And I don't count it against them. So there's going to be a doctor's office visit that's unavoidable for somebody. There's going to be a time where a kid gets sick and it's completely unavoidable. So the more grace that I can give around those just inconveniences of life, I feel like those honestly come back more than just the day-to-day in and out, or even the higher pay and paying, X amount more per year to abuse. They'd rather have those times where they just don't feel faulted for having to leave.
Right? Because life happens.
Yeah.
So
it
being
happens
able
to all of us. So
yeah. All right. Perfect. And then in terms of, I know we talked about how your sales and then your marketing and your support staff, what's the expectation that you have, on a daily or weekly basis for your sales team? And then the same thing for your service team. What are you expecting from them? What's your expectation as, the agency owner of, hey, this is what we need from you on a daily basis in order to get, you to the point of where you want to be, of, successful, both, in terms of what you're accomplishing, but then also in your financial goals and everything else that comes with that. So if you could tell us a little bit more about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have individual meetings with each sales team member and say, hey, what do you want to make annually? And so then they give me an amount that they want to make for the year. And then we basically work the math backwards to say, okay, that means your paycheck needs to be this. That means you need to close X amount per month in sales. That means you need to make X amount of outbound quotes. That means you need to make X amount of outbound calls. And so we line that up for them so they can see the math. I'm also super open to like what our agency takes to run. I don't ever want anybody to think, oh, wow, Haley's just sitting there doing nothing. And she's just on her computer watching YouTube videos all day, online shopping. And she leaves and takes home $150,000 a year, because that's not where I'm at in my agency right now.
Yeah.
It's constant. It's a constant. And so I say, hey, this is how much overhead is. This is how much it costs me to employ you, not in a negative way. And we go through those numbers, but hey, if you need this, I need to buy this amount of leads for your close ratio. And so in order to do that, this is how much you truly cost me on the back end. So this is why all of this happens to make all of this work. So this is where our agency needs to be. And so everybody really pulls together to want to hit that agency goal per month, because they're learning, okay, this is not just like Haley's not just making $40,000 a month as an agency and she's keeping half of it for herself and going home, online shopping. It's like, oh, holy crap, this really does cost a lot to run. And so they're all here for that team aspect and drive to really try and help out all together.
Yeah, that transparency can go a long way when I guess the conversation is very positive rather than.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's terrific. So we've talked about leads a couple of times. Do you have a specific solution to leads? I know, there really, I don't know if there necessarily is like a perfect solution to purchasing leads, but do you have a specific vendor that has worked for you? Or do you sort of switch it up, every once in a while? Or what's your game plan when it comes to purchasing leads for your producers and for your agency?
So we do try and do a lot of marketing. So driving inbound calls based upon how we appear on Google, how we appear on social media, et cetera, et cetera. So we are heavy in the social media market as far as trying to keep all of that sort of rolling to give warmer leads. But as far as internet leads go, I can't say there's not a perfect answer. It's like one company, one day ever quote your closing X amount of ratio and it's all great. And then the next moment it's like, wow, I've not done a rate of return on them in 4 months. And I've told them to turn off the coastal zip codes 3 times and they're not, so it's, there's so many different ways. But we typically just turn and toggle the lead carriers on and off as we track our rate of return and just say, hey, we'll check back with you when you get a little bit better lead. So there's, just a few that we toggle through, and we'll turn on auto pretty much all the time and then turn off home when needs be. And so the market in Texas has not been the best. All my Texas agents know that, but we basically are just trying to find the carriers and what's going to fit best for our target market as Farmers brand. So
absolutely. Well, great. I think we've covered a lot of awesome stuff, Haley, and I really appreciate you being transparent with how everything works. So the question that I always, I guess, wrap up the session with is, what's the greatest piece, or what's the number one piece of advice for anyone who is struggling with their hiring right now, or is going to start to get into it, or has been trying and maybe isn't seeing the most success at the current moment, right? What's the number one thing that you would hold to be like, no matter what happens, I'm always going to do this one thing? I'm sure there's a couple things you could point to, but what's the most important to you in terms of the advice that you would give to really anybody who's trying to hire staff now or planning to do it here soon?
Absolutely. I would get it out as far and wide as you can. I love IdealTraits. That's where I ultimately end up running everybody through, especially for the personality assessment. But I still post directly to Indeed. I still post directly to LinkedIn and Facebook. And so if I find a candidate that I like on those, then I reach out. I say, hey, okay, in the phone screen, I really like you. I'd like to bring you in for an in-person, but I'm also sending you a personality assessment. It's going to come from IdealTraits. You need to watch out for this because I need you to take it. And so I always reroute back to IdealTraits because I think that personality assessment is really crucial. But the more places that you can get the job ad out, that's the more ideal. And I know there's times where y'all's gives me 10 times, it's the same exact job ad, and y'all give me 10 times more coming off Indeed than Indeed gives me candidates.
Sure.
And then there could be vice versa. It's really weird. So I've just learned, I just shove it out everywhere, and then whatever sticks when it comes back that's the candidates we're going with.
Yeah. Yep. I will say too, the reason why that's probably happening is because Indeed is limiting one of those posts. So generally the one is probably good enough. And if you want to sponsor it directly through IdealTraits, you can. If you want to post to social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, do that through IdealTraits. But then in addition to that, we talked a little bit about Handshake. reach out to them, see if you can formulate, obviously relationships with colleges, and then take your job ads and copy and paste them to Handshake. Like the limitations in terms of, to Haley's point, of where you can have your job ad posted to are endless when utilizing the various resources from the career page to the social media integrations to, of course, the job board integration. So,
and the one thing I will say to Handshake too is I believe once a kid is on Handshake, like they have the account, they can stay with it. So I've had people apply with Handshake they're not 20, 21 years old. They're well into their 20s or 30s and they're looking for a career change, but they have that Handshake account because of their university from back in the day. And so you may be able to find a candidate that's more qualified than you're maybe initially expecting.
Absolutely. I'm a 2020 college graduate and I do still have a Handshake account, or at least I think last time I checked. But yes, that is true. It does stay active, especially if the institution that they attend has a relationship with Handshake themselves, then they'll be automatically actually created an account with their school email, I believe. But all right, terrific. Well, Haley, again, a lot of awesome stuff that we unpacked here. The thought process of really always be recruiting, having the IdealTraits account, never not having a job ad active. I think that's really good advice. Distributing it to as many people as possible. Always coming back to the assessment as a way to protect the investment that you're making into the process, and making sure that you really take a look at the candidate, their personality, their background, before just disqualifying them if they don't have a license or necessarily experience, right? So a lot of awesome stuff. Again, I know that you're just a couple of weeks away from welcoming your second child to the world. So even so, taking yourself away from your high-performing, of course, Farmers Insurance Agency, I appreciate you sharing your story, your success, and your tips and tricks when it comes to being successful with hiring. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Awesome. Well, the next Success Spotlight will be on November 14th at 1:00 with Allstate Hall of Fame agent Jeremy Olson. So be on the lookout for those of you listening for that next Success Spotlight that'll be taking place here in just over a month. But other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions with Haley, we'd be happy to share her email with you so you can directly reach out to her. If you joined us a little bit late, the recording will be available either later today or tomorrow. But thank you again for joining the 9th edition of Success Spotlight, and we'll see you in November. Take care.